Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Tuesday inside The Lock Shop. It's Nielsen. It is Hustler. We are live on my Twitter feed at Nielsen TSN at 1260. And, of course, subscribe to the podcast if you're downloading and listening to the podcast right now. As always, we appreciate it. The Lock Shop is brought to you by our friends at Coolbet Canada. We'll catch up again on Friday with Pat Gregoire, who joined us last week. Stay cool, bet responsibly with Coolbet. And if you're signing up for an account, use the bonus code LOCKSHOP, and you will get a 100% deposit bonus on your initial deposit up to $200. Huss, since we last spoke, we got NHL playoffs coming out the yin-yang, buddy. And it's about to just start in our market, but so far so good everywhere else.
Dude, it has been so good at this point in the playoffs. Honestly, I spent yesterday and this morning, after watching the games, thinking the bar has been set so high. Like, what are we going to see from this Jets-Oilers series? Because I think it's pretty clear that in the other series, at least so far, the brand of playoff hockey is a far cry from what we saw in the regular season. And I mean, the North Division, maybe out of all four of the divisions this year, had a knack at being maybe the less playoff style hockey. So I'm fascinated as to what we see in game number one, how the Jets try to, have a different result against Connor McDavid than what they did so far this year. But more than anything, how physical is this series going to be? Because the physicality has been ramped up in a big way in these other series. But when you look at the makeup of the Jets and Oilers, one would wonder whether either of these teams are ready to do what we're seeing in some of these other series that have already started.
100%. And I know we'll take a deeper dive on Winnipeg Sports Talk later today. I'm going to join Huss on his YouTube channel a little bit later on. But that's the case. Same question we talked about on Two Guys and a Goalie, and I've been talking about on my show here on 1260 in Edmonton. It's that you're seeing like Colorado and St. Louis, Landeskog and Shen dropping. They're like bloody awesome. Loved it. And some of these other series are teams are Florida, Tampa beating the hell out of each other. And I could see, so that's what I've been asking. I was like, is this Winnipeg Edmonton series going to be one of the tamest that we've seen in the first round? And you're right, neither team is really built that way. I mean, are we going to see Nugent Hopkins drop the gloves with Scheifele early in the first period? I think there might be a little bit of, hey, we're not afraid to do this either, and you're not afraid to do this. But in the end, they're going to settle into a high skill game in this series. That's just the way these two teams are built. That's the way these two teams have played so far this year. So I'm sure there'll be a little bit more nastiness than we saw regularly, but I just don't see this becoming an all-out bloodbath between these two teams.
No, I think that certainly based on what we know of these teams through 56 games, I would agree with you. And listen, you know better than me about what Dave Tippett's probably trying to instill in his club as they get ready to drop the puck tomorrow night. I can tell you that from Paul Maurice's side of things, and he's really spoken about this really through that 7-game losing streak and sort of coming out of it with some better performances during the last 4 or 5 games of the regular season, is that, they can't play the Oilers, or Leafs for that matter, the way they did in the regular season and expect to win in the playoffs. And, they're trying to get back to a game, really something that I think the Oilers embraced a long time ago, and it's been part of their recent success is, a more attention to detail, a focus on defense, and not just, leaving it all to your stars to go and win 8-6 hockey games. So it's going to be fascinating. And I guess the other thing, just speaking about this, not to get too much into this series in particular, Dusty, but when we did a little playoff preview on the last episode of The Lock Shop, the Edmonton Oilers were a minus 206 favorite in the series, and the Winnipeg Jets were plus 175. And despite a lack of any good news really on Nikolai Ehlers, Andrew Kopp was still in a non-contact jersey, but he joined us yesterday on the program and said that he was confident that he'll be good to go. Certainly expect Kopp in the lineup. But now Pierre-Luc Dubois hasn't been seen since the last game of the regular season. And I mentioned this on the show. If you were watching the game, I mean, I didn't see him apparently get hit in the head with a puck, but his last shift, he was completely out of it on the ice. I mean, I was watching the game and going, what the heck is this guy doing? Not knowing that he had been hit with the puck. And anyways, we didn't see him after that. They didn't speak about it a lot after the game. And obviously the team hasn't really given any updates on it. But just from the viewer noticing that something was awry, and then hearing that he was hit in the head with the puck. It's definitely concerning. And a guy that was thought to be a huge part of what the Jets hope to do in the playoffs might not be there. So, I mean, if you take Dubois out and if you take Ehlers out, the skill of the Winnipeg Jets goes down significantly. A huge load on the Scheifele line, which actually looked great at the end of the season. And that's, I think, one bit of optimism for Jets fans going into this series. But considering all that news, I was not expecting the Jet number to drop from 175 to plus 130 as we sit here on Tuesday morning.
It doesn't make sense. I mean, with the injury news that's come out, to see the Oilers move from minus 208 down to minus 154 where it's at right now. First of all, I'm rattled I went on it at 208. I mean, I'll probably get in it at minus 154 here just to make a little bit more on it. But is it just... I mean, I know we've got pretty big cool bet followings in Edmonton and Winnipeg, but I know Oilers fans here are going to be hammering the oil, which shouldn't move the line. Well, wouldn't move them like that. So is this a massive push from Jets fans, or are we missing something with this movement?
No, you know what it is, Dusty? It's the Sharps. The Sharps are all on the Jets.
Not the Sharps! Not the Sharps!
This number makes no sense. They're going down. It's hard to say. It's obvious. Well, one other interesting thing, and Pat told us this last week when we got going on the series when Pat Gregoire joined us. Coolbet's biggest liability in the Stanley Cup playoffs is the Winnipeg Jets. And listen, that's not that they have the most bets on it, is that the Jets had been, I think, undervalued through most of the year. I mean, I've got a couple Jets tickets at 50-1 from earlier in the season. And they went down as low as about 24-1. I think they entered the playoffs around 34-1. But then when you compare the cool bet following in Winnipeg that, we've been able to develop with the fact that a lot of people are playing there, and those numbers have been very attractive to, go with the long shot on the Jets. That certainly would affect it. But, just a line movement this significant, I have not seen in a long time. And it's certainly, there hasn't been one, like, we didn't hear that Connor McDavid's injured. And that moved the line from plus 175
that type of injury would move a line significantly.
Are we sure Connor's okay? Are we sure McDavid's okay? Does somebody know something that we don't?
Tippett's a Sharp. That's what we figured out. It blows my mind, but so we'll see how this thing plays out. But that number, I don't know if it was you that messaged me or popped up somewhere, I was just like, what the hell is going on here? How has this thing moved that much right already? But quickly.
I sent a tweet out yesterday. I mean, the first thing, we kind of went into it on Friday, and then we're looking at game lines, and then on Monday, I go in and go, wait a second, what? So
I don't understand.
I have no reason for it. I'm just noting it for our listeners and cool bettors that may have been on one side or the other, made a bet or had been waiting. I think there were some Jet fans that were waiting, thinking that, with all the momentum on Edmonton, that number might get a bit higher.
I know.
Obviously, don't wait for the great line if you like the one that comes out when they drop them on us.
All right, today on this episode of The Lock Shop, we're going to give you a couple puck picks. We got the Dog Pound, Double Play Parlay in the world of Major League Baseball, our PGA Championship Picks as well. Exciting times in the world of golf. I'm going to be in a bunch of different drafts and a bunch of, are you going to DraftKings? Is that already gone out? Is your invite gone out on that bad boy?
I'll do that at the end of the Lock Shop. If you're in our warm-up pool, check your invites. I'll do a tweet because the invites on DraftKings have been all screwed up over the last few months. I don't know what's going on with that. A personal pet peeve of mine that has not been rectified yet. But we will do one. And if you're already with us, if not, hit me up on Twitter at Hustlerama with your DraftKings handle, and we'll send you an invite.
And we'll give you some picks a little bit later on, but let's dive into our puck picks today with Nielsen and Hustler. Huss, where are you going, buddy? We're in a couple bounce back spots here.
That's exactly right. I'm going with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And, last week when we were talking about the series picks that we liked, I went with Pittsburgh. I didn't like the way the Islanders finished up their season. I really liked what Pittsburgh did this year. And then we get to game number one, and it looks like a carbon copy of a couple of years ago where these teams played close games. And then lo and behold, Barry Trotz's squad eked one out late in the third period or in overtime. And it was interesting. There was a big, Kyle Palmieri was showing up on Long Island on the side of milk cartons after he was acquired at the trade deadline. But he showed up when they needed it. Early goal and then an OT winner, and the Islanders are up 1-0. Listen, I don't think I could see the Islanders winning this series, but I don't think they're going to sweep them like they did a couple weeks ago. I still like the Pittsburgh Penguins, I think, overall in the series, but I won't if they lose this game tonight. So this really does seem like must win. It was a very close game. It could have gone either way, but I like the Penguins to bounce back at home, even this series, make it a best of 5, and then move out to Long Island to see where they can take it up from there. But, in a lot of ways, it sort of feels like this is the series. I mean, I know it's not crazy without the full buildings to have a team that would lose 2 at home, come back and win the series. But just with the history, with what the Islanders do when they start getting success, it's Pittsburgh needs this win tonight. I like them at -135.
Yeah, and I think Vegas needs a win as well tonight. They're at -161 right now. Minnesota Wild were the better team in the head-to-head meetings during the regular season. Minnesota Wild take game 1. Like, if you're the Golden Knights and you're supposed to have this championship ability that many of us think they do, you got to go out and win this hockey game tonight. You had 42 shots on Cam Talbot in game 1. It's not like Minnesota came in and rolled over them in game 1. It was a goaltending battle where a puck finally went off a defenseman and got past Marc-Andre Fleury. But Cam Talbot was absolutely sensational in game 1. So I don't feel like it was the Golden Knights just sort of going through the paces and feeling out the Wild. They got stoned by Cam Talbot multiple times. So I feel like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like the Golden Knights have something to prove to themselves here, that you can't continue to be owned by the Minnesota Wild when you're supposed to be the team that gets to face Colorado in the second round. It's what we've all been waiting for. I'll be shocked if the Golden Knights, because I do believe in this group. I think they're a good group. I don't think they have some of the top end talent that they'll have to go through Colorado with, or whoever comes out of the North, or however it's going to work. But this is a really, really good hockey team who obviously took some losses during the year because of their cap situation and they weren't dressing full lineups. Could back to bite them, come back to bite them in the ass. But if there was any thought process here that the Golden Knights are a better team than Minnesota, at no point in the head-to-head battles this year has that been proven by this Vegas team yet. So I think they get it done tonight. I'm on the Knights at -161.
Just talking about this, you kind of have to mention going back to the second last Saturday of the season. Vegas playing Colorado, first place on the line, and Vegas had to dress 10 forwards and 5 defensemen because of how up against it they were for the cap.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they could have imagined that they would have been in a scenario like that. They ended up, playing it tight, but they lost 2-1. And then Colorado ran the table and ended up finishing first. And for that, the Vegas Golden Knights get the Minnesota Wild. And listen, Vegas in the first period was all over Minnesota. The shots were, I think, 19 or 20-5. But again, they didn't beat Cam Talbot. And in talking to some friends in Vegas after the game, for all those 42 shots, the one thing that Vegas didn't do well enough, and Minnesota did a great job, is keeping the majority of those out to the perimeter. And, we've seen in some of these other games. I mean, think about Boston, Washington last night, even Colorado. There's so much traffic around these nets. It's cliche, but you have to be in those dirty areas to score the goals. And Vegas didn't do that well enough on game number 1. But I'm with you. I certainly think that they bounce back and get it. Hell, I'm on them to win the cup, so they better bounce back and win this game tonight, because being down 2-0, heading to Minnesota with the Wild feeling pretty good about themselves is not at all a situation that the Vegas Knights want to be in.
Can you put in a call to Lawless? I know he hates your glasses, but can you put in a call to Lawless here and say, hey, tell these guys to get their act together?
Yes. Well, trust me, I have a feeling that he would be. It was funny. It was so nice here in Winnipeg on the weekend, and there's nowhere to go, nothing to do. Instead of just sitting inside, I actually went out, sat down by the river, fired up the radio broadcast of the game, and heard Gary and Duva, listen to it. So, yeah, it was fun kind of taking it outside for a little bit.
Old school. I like it.
Nice afternoon of radio listening, and it certainly sounded like an exciting 0-0 game. There was no shortage of shots and chances and whatnot. But that's what the playoffs is all about. And again, the best thing about that game and some of the other ones so far, Dusty, as much as it triggers us in Alberta and Manitoba, seeing fans back in buildings and getting some legitimate atmosphere back for some playoff hockey, which desperately needs it.
Yeah, that has been incredible so far, and I hope that doesn't lead to a little bit of a letdown from the viewing experience for us here in the North. But how is it not going to win?
Let me ask you that. Like when we see this game tomorrow night in Edmonton in an empty building, I mean, is it going to feel more like tomorrow afternoon's Flames Canucks game, or will it feel more like a legitimate playoff game considering what we've seen so far? I'm not sure.
I'll be there. I'll be there at that game, and I don't see how it's going to feel any different than any of the other regular season games that I've gone to this year. You know, there's zero atmosphere in there, and you watch what's going on. You cannot tell me that Florida and Tampa aren't beating the shit out of each other, and a little bit of it is driven by that crowd going absolutely nuts. I mean, of course it is. Of course it is. So
you know, it was going to take a global pandemic for us to be talking about, can you believe that crowd in Florida last night? That's the way you do it, NHL. Let's raise the bar. Where was this great atmosphere? Fort Lauderdale, South Florida, Panthers, playoffs. Okay.
Gary Bettman somewhere is just going like this right now.
I told you.
He's so happy. He's so happy. All right, let's get to the dog. Actually, let's continue with that conversation because you're going NHL in the dog pound. I like the other favorites. I like your Panthers pick. If I had to go with a dog, I would have agreed with you in the NHL tonight. So I'm going to the association. We'll get to that in a second. That's one I really like too. But let's stick with the Florida Panthers and a bounce back here as well.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say about game number one between these two teams? That was an absolute classic. I mean, if we get a game or two in this entire playoffs that was better than that one, I mean, we'll be lucky. But, for a guy that was on the Lightning on the series pick, I have to admit, I came out of that game even more impressed with the way that, the Panthers are able to play the Tampa Bay Lightning. And, you knew that Joel Quenneville would go with Bobrovsky to start the playoffs with this $10 million man. And I think you also knew that if, Bobrovsky got lit up for 5 from the Tampa Bay Lightning, they'd go back to the guy that really was their best goaltender this year. And that's Manitoba's Chris Driedger on his $700,000 salary or whatever it is, playing back up to the $10 million man. So Driedger's in tonight. That number was originally about 107. It's now, as you can see on the screen, up to plus 116. I was a little less confident with the loss of Sam Bennett. I mean, it's incredible. He has been the trade deadline pickup of the season so far this year. I think he had 15 points in 12 games, which is more than what he did in the entire season with Calgary. So listen, that is a loss, but to me, this isn't going to be a short series. I think the Panthers showed that they are absolutely able to go toe-to-toe with the Lightning. I think they get a goaltender in the net tonight that, just makes a couple more saves than Bobrovsky did. And, when looking for an underdog tonight, this was the one that really stood out to me. So, listen, they're an underdog for a reason. The Lightning are a hell of a hockey team. And, the miraculous recovery just in time of Nikita Kucherov and Steven Stamkos has put them in a real nice position. Screw the salary cap. But
98 mil. Their payroll is 98 mil. Is what they're dressed in the playoffs. Like,
yeah, it was a scam. We knew it was happening all along. Somehow Kucherov sure looked good for a guy that just came off injury. It's almost like he's been ready to go for 6 weeks.
It's like he's been skating every day for 6 to 7 weeks. Yeah. Looks like he's the most well-rested player in the entire National Hockey League. I want Coolbet to give us odds on which player the Tampa Bay Lightning will use to circumvent the cap next season. That's what I want. Tyler Johnson, he's out for the year. Might be back for the postseason.
Yeah. Tyler, just enjoy your $5 million and hang tight. Do the go on the Cooch regimen. Little rehab and then 2 months of just prep. See you in the playoffs.
I'm going to the association for the dog pound play-in action in the NBA, and a story of two teams that have been going, I should say, in exactly opposite directions. Boston Celtics were a team that was up fighting near the top of the Eastern Conference for a little bit. They've slowly been falling down. If you look at the way they ended the season, I think they've lost 5 of their last 6 and 9 of their last 13. So they've been playing their way down to the play-in game, whereas the Wizards, on the other hand, with Russell Westbrook getting a triple-double every single night and Bradley Beal being one of the best scorers in the NBA, these two guys have actually become that duo that you thought they all would be when Westbrook ended up being acquired by Washington. They've won 17 of their last 23 down the stretch. So they've played their way up into the 7-8 game, whereas the Celtics have just slowly failed their way down to the 7-8 game. And I don't think the Celtics are in a spot here where all of a sudden they flip a switch and cruise through these two playing games and all of a sudden have some momentum going into the playoffs. So I like the Wizards. Now, you can get them. I think the spread I saw last is plus 2.5 if you just want to go with the spread. But for them to win outright tonight, which I do think they will, it's plus 123 as a dog for the Wizards to get it done. And this is just another chapter in a horrible collapse by the Celtics in the second half, Huss.
Yes, well, it's interesting. We can say that about a couple of legendary NBA franchises. Allow me to pivot to the West and ask you, what the heck's happened to your Lakers, and could my dream of them not even participating in the legitimate playoffs take place?
Oh, you watch yourself. They're gonna be in the legitimate playoffs. Here's what happened with the Lakers. Everybody always gets me fired up about the Lakers. They were in first place, then AD went down. They fall down to third place. LeBron goes down, and they're just not a good basketball team without LeBron and Anthony Davis. I mean, there's a reason the rest of those guys get picked up. Now, they're healthy. Could they lose to Steph on Wednesday? Because Steph will go out and drop 50 on them from the logo? Yeah, they could lose to Steph. Mind you, I think they'll win that game, but they could lose to Steph. But whoever loses that game, I don't think is going to lose to Memphis. So it's going to be wild when you've got the Lakers as a 7 seed, the Warriors as an 8 seed, and the Jazz and Suns who feel all good about themselves, and then LeBron and Steph are just going to swoop in and be like, thanks for holding our spots down at the top of the division. So we'll see how it plays out. But I'm not a big fan of the plan. Like, just put the Wizards, put the Celtics in. Last year, when they came back and finished the regular season, I got it then. I don't think you needed it for a 72-game season, man.
Well, LeBron was a huge supporter of it last year, thought it was a great idea. And then all of a sudden this is a joke. Like, listen, I'm not gonna dump on your guy LeBron, but it's
but I thought it was
funny.
A good idea last year. This year, I didn't think it's necessary.
So did he.
Yeah. I know.
So did he.
All right. So there's our dog pound. We got a 2-sport dog pound tonight. Panthers plus 116 for Huss. I'm on the Wizards plus 123 in the playing game against the Celtics. Let's head to the Diamond for the MLB double play parlay. And this is a great series between the Jays and Sox, buddy. I'm stoked.
Oh, man. Me too. How about the Jays right now? I mean, I couldn't not go. Hyunjin Ryu is the man, the big Korean, my favorite player. I may have to pick up, albeit a longtime Royals fan, do have a soft spot for the Jays, and I love this guy. I want a number 99 jersey. I may have to pick that up at some point, and if I had one, I'd be throwing it on tonight for this one. Ryu versus Rodriguez, a hell of a matchup to begin this series. And, going back to, what was it, last weekend when they swept the Braves? Then they earlier last week sweep the Braves. They lose game 1 against the Phillies, come back with 2 more to win the series. I mean, doing this without George Springer, without Nate Pearson, with Merriweather on the 60-day DL. I mean, I had said, I believe to you, or maybe it was the guys in Calgary doing the show, that, at this point for the first half of the season, I mean, if the Jays can just keep their heads above water and stay in it, waiting for the reinforcements to come, I think that would be a success. Well, I mean, to me, they're exceeding that right now. And the offense is a big part of it. All that young talent is, getting very productive at the plate. And the Jays bullpen, I can't say enough about what they've been able to do so far this year. So putting all that in together, they've got their ace on the mound. They've got some real momentum. It's a big game against the Red Sox. And I, for one, am still waiting for the bubble to burst on Boston. So at minus 139 with Hyunjin Ryu on the mound, I will go with the Toronto Blue Jays for the first leg of the double play parlay.
And our parlay in the end is going to pay, I just checked, plus 236 is what it'll be for tonight. My line has moved a little bit since I locked it in last night. Padres minus 1.5. It was plus 106 last night. It's minus 110 today. So you got the Padres minus 1.5, minus 110 against the Rockies. Beat them 7-0 yesterday. Padres have won 7 of 8. 6 of those 7 victories, Huss, have been by at least 2 runs or more. So it's not like they're just scraping by here. They've basically been covering this run line for the last week. I don't see the Rockies changing that tonight. Now, their one loss in their last 8 was against the Rockies 3-2 late last week. So, I mean, maybe it happens again, but I am more than comfortable. I loved it when I saw it at plus money last night. It's the main reason I hopped on it, but I still like the Padres minus 1.5 here against the Rockies today.
Yeah, and the Jays number has changed a little bit to minus 132. So I actually just locked in that parlay plus 236 right now as we do the show live, just heading into noon.
We like that one for sure. That's your double play parlay. Blue Jays at home against the Sox. Padres at home minus 1.5 against the Rockies. If you're watching on the Lock Shop, let us know what you're on tonight. And let us know what you're staying away from. Your first early thoughts here on the postseason. And of course, subscribe to the podcast as well as we transition to golf. And it's major week, buddy. Fired up for this. Where are you going?
Well, yeah, this is going to be amazing. This Kiowa Island in South Carolina is a world-class course. It could play as long as nearly 8,000 yards, Dusty. So it's going to be an absolutely crazy challenge.
That's the longest in major championship history, isn't it, Huss?
I believe so.
I saw that last night, yeah.
Start with an 8. And again, depending on the weather conditions, they might move the tees up at times. I mean, we'll see what it actually ends up being. But the potential is there for it to be one of the biggest beast courses that we've ever seen. And the way it will be set up. The other thing, of course, that's going to test these guys is the fact that it's right on the ocean. And, if you've ever been, playing in coastal locales, you realize just how quickly the wind can change, the conditions can change. And I think, the well-rounded players that can handle all of that are going to be in a really good position to get going for this tournament. As far as the odds go, we've got 6 guys under 20-1. Rory at 12, Rahm at 14, Justin Thomas at 16, Spieth at 17, DeChambeau and Dustin Johnson at 19-1, which pretty long odds for players like that. I mean, it's a really interesting board, and I think there is some value on a lot of players. I will start my picks with Rory. And I think this is the first time I've ever picked an actual betting favorite on this. But considering we just saw Rory win on tour for the first time since he won in China in 2019, that was huge for Rory. The other thing is the history. If we're talking about recent play and course history, Rory checks both of those boxes. He won the PGA Championship here in 2012 by 8 strokes. And Rory, much like we saw at Quail Hollow, even when he hasn't been playing well, can go back to places where he's had a lot of success and deliver. And I just think that coming off that win was a big, big relief for him. He's now ready to get back in the winner's circle in a major championship. And at 12-1 as the favorite in this tournament with a win, with course history, I think, listen, I didn't want to not have Rory on the card. So, as far as when we're picking the guys at the top, I went with Rory, although I will say I have already backed your top guy with a bet because I'm big on Vic Hovland, and I think that we'll talk about Vic in a minute when you get into your picks. The other 2 guys that I'm selecting for our Lock Shop picks are guys that we've been on before. Yep. I've been talking about Cam Smith all year. And I really feel like he is ready for a breakout into real stardom on the PGA Tour. And not just because of one of the dirtiest mullets in all of sports. He has had some great performances this year. He's been very consistent. He can drive the ball. His iron play is great. If he's sinking some putts, he's probably pushing near the top of the leaderboard. And we saw that even back in the Zurich Classic along with his partner, Mark Leishman. And I don't know whether it was the performance of those guys together, but you look at Leishman was top 5 at the Masters. He's been a guy that comes up big in the major championships, has been playing well as of late. And I'll tell you what, the Aussies are players that, I think have I don't want to say a bit of an advantage, but certainly won't be at a disadvantage playing in coastal areas where you could see one set of conditions half an hour and be on the tee box, 2 holes later and have it be a completely different story. So I think Cam Smith and Mark Leishman are both contenders for this tournament. Smith at 44-1 and Leishman at 74, considering his performances so far this year. I wanted to put on the card. Hey, listen, for the majors, we always probably bet a few more guys, getting a few more exotics. It was very difficult to limit it to 3 guys for this tournament for this. But as I said, usually going with one of the guys near the top and then a couple guys that are providing real value. Rory's the guy at the top. He's got the recent win. He's got the course history. And then the Aussie team coming off their win at the Zurich Classic. I like both of these guys to contend on the weekend, and a 44 and 74 to 1. The Aussie team of Smith and Leishman both get individual bets.
I like Leishman just on that value alone. When I saw you sent that email last night, I was like, well, I'm going to get on that for sure. Because some of the things you read, people are pretty high on him actually heading into this event. So see him at plus 7,400 was kind of crazy. For me, I got the 3 guys as well. Let me just quickly whip through these 3 guys and we can dive into Hovland a little bit more here if you want. Okay, he's been playing extremely. You talk about where the form is, where they're at right now. He's consecutive T3s. He's tops on the tour in adjusted scoring, 7th in all around, 6th in strokes gained, tee to green. And both of his victories have actually come on the same grass that they will be playing this week. So he's had success. What's it? Paspalum? How do you say it?
I don't know. There's the.
I think it's Paspalum. They put it into this course. I was reading about it. So because it used to be Bermuda grass, now it's Paspalum. He's won both of his victories on that same type of grass, which, as I've got right here, I tracked this down last night. It's better suited for the wind, salt, and sun of an oceanside setting. It has no grain, which makes for smoother greens and a ball that sits up in the fairway. So if you've won twice with those same conditions and the ball's going to be sitting up in the fairway again, buddy, I say let's hop on Vic again at 24 to 1. Then I've got Daniel Berger. This guy's just been, like, statistically this year, he's been one of the best on the tour. Go ahead, Huss.
I just said money. I mean, he's been from the beginning of the restart coming out. Daniel Berger, week in and week out, has been one of the most consistent players on tour, and in a very good way. And it's interesting with that number. It shows the respect that Berger's getting because, I mean, he's right there. And actually, it's funny. I'm looking right now. That number's dropped again. It's now 29 to 1. So, I mean, even, he was tied with a guy like Morikawa who won this event last year. He's right there alongside some of the bigger names. I mean, Schauffele, Hovland, and then DJ. So people are noticing what Berger's been doing consistently so far. And I think it is time for him to jump into the winner's circle in a major.
When we're getting him at 34 to 1 here, and like Huss said, he's not one of the bigger names, but he's playing just as well, if not better, than a lot of the bigger names. Top 20 in total driving, greens in regulation, strokes gained putting, adjusted scoring, par 3, par 4, par 5 scoring, bogey avoidance, and all around. Like, no matter where you look statistically, Berger is in the top 20. So I like him at the 34 to 1, which is great. And then, a little bit deeper down the list, Matthew Fitzpatrick. Last night when I put this together, he was plus 6,000. Did miss a cut week before the major here, and had a month layoff after that. But prior to that, and this is why, I mean, if we were sitting here and I was talking Matthew Fitzpatrick at plus 4,000, I don't know if I'd be on him. But at plus 6,000 here, you're looking at top 20 in 6 of his 7 starts before his layoff. So, there's a significant amount of ability here with Fitzpatrick. And to see him down in that group where he was, he's kind of the one name that jumped off the page for me in that plus 5,500 to 6,500 type of range, where you're looking at guys, Burns, don't mind Burns, Connors, Fitzpatrick, Zalatoris. I mean, those are all 4 guys. And Burns has been playing extremely well as of late. So, I mean, those are decent value at 6,400.
Yeah, Burns. I mean, man, he's got a win and second in the last 3 weeks on tour. He's been phenomenal. And it's interesting. I'm just looking. Fitzpatrick's now, if you're betting this live right now, he's at 64 to 1, tied with Corey Connors, who actually bet last night at 74 to 1. So there has been some movement of some particular guys. But I mean, if you would have told me, Dusty, that, Corey Connors would be going into a major at 64, and then guys like Paul Casey, Tommy Fleetwood, Neiman, Leishman would be behind Corey Connors, I think that would tell you just how impressed people are with his ball striking in particular. And it's interesting that you mentioned, the greens. If this is a course that, maybe average putters can do a little bit better because I think Corey Connors is average at best when it comes to the flat stick, but he's absolutely elite when it comes to that ball striking. Maybe he could be in. So I do have a little piece of Corey Connors. I think he's been phenomenal this year. And again, long iron play with a beast of a course like this is going to be absolutely imperative. It's another reason why I've seen a lot of people touting Tyrrell Hatton, who hasn't been great as of late, but when it comes down to that just stone cold hitting those ball all the nuts iron game, he's certainly one of those guys. He's at 54 right now. But I got to tell you, I mean, when you compare this odds board with McIlroy as the favorite at 14 and numbers like 14 for Rahm, 16 for JT, 19 for DeChambeau and Dustin Johnson, it just goes to show you how wide open this event is. Yeah. And the one guy we should talk about for a minute, because to be honest, I ended up going with Rory, but if it wasn't Rory, it was going to be Jordan Spieth. He had, a couple brilliant rounds last weekend at the Byron Nelson.
I know, I was on him last weekend with our picks, and I was just like, come on, you need one more good round.
Is this going to be, him getting into the winner's circle and winning the PGA Championship? I mean, I think ignoring Spieth at 17, I mean, as I said, you can only pick so many guys up at the top of the leaderboard, but I would be stunned if Jordan Spieth is not in the mix on Sunday in this tournament. I guess that's what I'm saying.
You know what I love is that me and 7 buddies, I've mentioned to you before, we do a draft for every major, just a 2-round draft, and I'm sitting in the 8-9 swing for this one, and this field is so great and so deep. I'm loving. I don't care who's left there at 8 and 9. I'm gonna love it. Like, I'm getting great value in that end of first round, early second round swing. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I love golf drafts. I love golf DFS. I love golf bets. Honestly, I think, the future growth of the PGA Tour, as much as people playing will always be an engine for the game. What they're doing now with DraftKings and, partnering up with some of the books now that it's being legalized, I think there's going to be a whole new group of people that never really paid attention to golf that are going to get their introduction from a cut sweat or a bet that's going down to the wire on Sunday and really create some new fans. And I mean, all the sports now are going to be trying to, kind of leverage their participation in the world of wagering. Not the wide world of wagering, just the world of wagering, and grow their base, grow their fan base, and obviously continue the cash registers ringing. But this is going to be an amazing tournament.
Just quickly on the golf, how crazy people are about it right now. As you know, I do some card breaks with a group called Break Kings, and the new golf cards just came out, Artifacts Golf, yes. And they're so going. Nice. For $1,000 a box locally here. There's 32 cards in the box. 8 packs of 4. If you want a box right now, it's going to cost you $1,000, Huss. It's insane. The value for like F1 cards and golf cards. Like, they're so hard to come by, especially up here, that the prices are just, and people are loving it. People are absolutely loving it. It's nuts. It's insane.
Well, I was from my local store here, I asked the guys and he goes, man, we put some orders in. We can't get any more. No. I mean, if we get them, we'll let you know. And obviously supply and demand, especially in a business like that, it is cratering going up like that. But I have been watching a few of the breaks, and I mean, the cards are brilliant. There's some really cool, game used stuff, if you will. And I saw a guy pull a signed Tiger numbered out of 25.
I saw that on Twitter last night before I went to bed.
Yeah, that was, I'm like, oh God, I got to get some hands. My buddy Feinberg, I think, has a couple boxes being delivered. I don't know whether he wants a partner in on a break, but he's a big golf guy. We'll see what's up. But yeah, pay attention. If you're a card guy into golf, check out those UD artifacts. And if you can possibly get your hands on them, for less than $1,000 a box. Go for it.
God, it's crazy. All right, that's gonna do it. Next time we talk, we'll be right smack dab in the middle of Game 2 of the Oilers and the Jets. So we'll discuss how we're gonna make that work on Friday. Because
we may have to move up. We may have to move up Friday's lock shop. I
think so too. I'm gonna be at the game. I'll talk to you about that. We got to get that sorted out. But we'll have another episode at some point on Friday for sure. All right, that is going to do it for us. Huss, enjoy it. Well, I guess, hey, buddy, I'll talk to you in like an hour. How's that sound?
Absolutely, yeah. Dusty's coming on Winnipeg Sports Talk. If you're watching us live, and maybe if you're on the Edmonton side of things, just search Winnipeg Sports Talk on YouTube. We'll be live at 1 p.m. Central, so that's noon Edmonton time. Dusty will be our first guest in at about 12:15, and we'll go deep into Jets-Oilers before puck drop tomorrow night.
That's going to do it for another episode of The Lock Shop, brought to you by our friends at CoolBet Canada. Find them on Twitter at CoolBet Canada. Stay cool, bet responsibly. For Hustler, I'm Nielsen. Thank you very much for downloading. Thank you very much for watching. We'll talk to you Friday.